Hey Paranormies, it's Jenna and you're on the light side of the paranormal. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. As you can see in the title down below, I'm going to be talking to you guys about Ed and Lorraine Warren. This is a topic that is very widely discussed on the paranormal side of YouTube, but I felt like it was important for us to cover it as well, as this will lay a nice baseline down because we will be getting into Ed and Lorraine's cases in the future. Bonus points for whoever's keeping track of how many times I say Ed and Lorraine Warren. It's also important to talk about Ed and Lorraine and how they have paved the way, in a sense, for people like Alice and I and other paranormal investigators nowadays. Unfortunately, Ed and Lorraine have both passed away. Ed passed away in 2006 and Lorraine more recently in 2019. But this is just going to be a quick video going over who they were and a bit of their backstory. A brief overview if you've never heard of the Warrens. They were a couple who founded the New England Society for Psychic Research in 1952. Ed was a self-proclaimed demonologist and Lorraine was a clairvoyant medium. So a lot of people have heard of the Warrens and associate their names with the paranormal. Their names have become very popular and they were considered celebrities of the paranormal world. So let's start at the beginning. When Lorraine was a teenager, she used to go to the theater with her mother often and watch movies, and Ed was working at this theater. And they fell in love, and so started their love story. They dated through their teen years, and eventually Ed had to go off to World War II, which put their relationship on a bit of a pause. Now, while away at war, Ed actually had a near-death experience. The ship he was on collided with another, and it started a huge fire and all of the men had to jump overboard. The ocean was very icy, and as he lay in the frigid waters, he prayed for rescue, and shortly after it came. This sparked him to ask Lorraine to marry him as soon as he got home, which he did, and they were married in 1945. So Ed shared his childhood paranormal experiences with Lorraine, and this sparked their paranormal mission. When Ed was about 5 years old, he said that he would be playing in his room and he would see a ball of light start to form and come closer to him and get larger and eventually turn into the face of their dead landlady, who actually died a year prior to Ed starting to see her apparition. He would also go on to see family members in his dreams, family members that he had never met, that would give him prophetic dreams, information in his dreams that would come true at a later date. One aunt in particular would give him most of his prophetic dreams, one of them being that Ed would grow up to help a lot of priests, but never actually become one himself, which at the time would seem very obscure and not make much sense, but would go on to make a lot of sense in the future. Now, Lorraine also had strange experiences as a child. She actually thought that everybody had experiences like this and didn't realize it was out of the ordinary. That realization came when she was 12 years old and she was at school. It was Arbor Day and everyone was planting trees. And as she stood planting a small tree with her classmates, she saw it in her mind's eye grow large into a beautiful big tree. And as she was standing there looking up at this tree, one of the nuns came over and asked her what she was doing, and when she explained, she was seeing what it looked like in the future and what it would be when it was fully grown. The skepticism and unknowingness from the classmates and the nun gave her the impression that this isn't something everybody experienced. So Lorraine was a clairvoyant, and she was clairvoyant her entire life. She would see things in her mind's eye that would be or that had been, and she thought that this was a normal, everyday occurrence for everybody. Believe it or not, Lorraine was actually a skeptic for many, many years, until she worked everything out and became to understand herself and the paranormal world a little bit better. So Ed and Lorraine were artists, and once they got married, Ed started taking painting classes, and they came up with this idea. This was going to be their plan. They actually really thought that this would be their career and their future plan. What they would do is they would find haunted homes or suspected haunted homes, and they would go to those homes and sketch the house and see what they felt and understood from the home. And then they would go and knock on the door and offer the homeowners to buy their sketch and for them to give them more information about the home and what they were feeling. So they did that for about 5 years, and it progressed into them finding these locations, drawing them, and asking homeowners if they'd like to know more, into homeowners contacting them asking to know more. At this point, they founded the New England Society for Psychic Research, and that was in 1952. And that would spark what would become many, many years of investigating suspected hauntings. So it was in the 70s that their fame really took off. They helped many families with suspected hauntings, poltergeist, possession, and eventually exorcisms as well, which would touch back on Ed's prophetic dream, where he would help a lot of priests but not actually become one himself. During these investigations is when Ed would research a lot of information on demons and demonology, and he became a self-professed demonologist. During all of this as well, Lorraine learned how to be a trance medium, so she would go into trance and be able to relay information about the home, the hauntings, the possessions, and things along those lines. They resided in Monroe, Connecticut, and they had one daughter who would go on to marry, and her husband would end up working and helping Ed and Lorraine out a whole lot. Attached to their home in Monroe, they owned one of the world's largest occult museums. They would keep items in this museum that they had taken from their cases, items that they felt were haunted or cursed or possessed, items that they felt would do damage left where they were. They felt safer bringing home and binding in such a way as they could do no harm and be in their museum where they could keep a close eye on them. Sorry, that was a mouthful. Sometimes I really suck at explaining things. Unfortunately, now that they have passed, their occult museum is closed, which is really awful for all of us out there who wanted to visit at some point. Hopefully those items find their way to a museum that can be open one day, or that somebody will reopen the Warrens Museum. That would be wonderful. But moving on from that, as I don't want to touch too much on the occult museum because I do want to make a video completely about the museum. So back to the hauntings and cases that they would investigate. So they never actually charged these families for helping them. They would make their money by writing books and giving lectures and interviews about the paranormal and the cases that they have investigated. So Ed and Lorraine Warren had a 61-year partnership and investigated over 10,000 suspected hauntings worldwide. Now, your knowledge of Ed and Lorraine Warren might be because of Hollywood. And Hollywood has taken quite a few of their cases and made huge blockbuster movies about them. Which movies in particular, you ask? Well, the first one is the Annabelle series. Annabelle is a possessed doll that Ed and Lorraine Warren had in their museum. All of the Amityville movies were based on the Amityville horror case that Ed and Lorraine worked on as well. The Conjuring 1, The Conjuring 2, the Enfield Poltergeist, those were both based on Ed and Lorraine's true events, as well as other movies that have been spin-offs from characters of those movies, for example, The Nun. So Ed and Lorraine were actually Catholics, and their belief was not in hauntings or hauntings by spirits and loved ones. Their thoughts were that these hauntings and possessions were always very evil and demonic-like, and that if you did not have faith, you were drawing these things and inviting the entities in. So I didn't want to go too in-depth as we plan on making other videos about the Warrens and their cases. I just wanted to give a brief overview of who they were if you've never heard of them, or if you've only heard of them because of the movies. Please make sure to let me know in the comments below what I left out or interesting facts that I forgot. This is very brief, but if you like this video and you made it to the end, please make sure to give it a like. And don't forget to follow us over on Instagram. Alice and myself's personal accounts will also be linked in the description below, and you can follow us in our personal lives as well if you so choose. And that's it for me, guys. So until next time, keep on creeping on.